And that because that's the upper house of our the senators are supposed to be the cream of the crop. The word senator means old man. In other words, the older men are supposed to know how to behave and act senatorially. I'm not sure if that's a word or not. It might be. Okay. And but there's more expected of them than of others, and they're supposed to be well behaved and come up with wise or lots of wisdom type ideas, and vote carefully and effectively. And we have a lot of confidence in them. And but their statesmanship was really missing this week, and we wondered if there were any statesmen left. And I know the whole country is upset about it, and there's been all the rest of the weekend. If you tuned into your television sets at all, you see that they're still talking about it, and they're still grieving about the way it was conducted. There was a vote at the end. If you missed it, I missed it. I didn't hear the roll call because there was so much going on. But in the last few moments of their hearing, they did take a vote, and 11 to 10, and with the condition that they have an FBI. One of the senators said he would change his vote if there were not a FBI investigation. So we pray for the FBI that they'll do something good, and if that's possible. And but it was alarming to see the behavior of these senior legislators in the Senate, which is supposed to be the best of the best. And at least they agreed that many of them agreed that they were ashamed, and they should be. And so we got to pray for these senators, because that's the backup that we have. The House of Representatives is based on membership is based on population, whereas the Senate is just 2 per state, and they're usually the older men, although there are ladies there as well. And so we need a lot of prayer. But 2 weeks ago, I had a message for you about what was that called? It was about the fact that Jesus created us all at once in the Garden of Eden, and the souls of those people are carried in the loins of their fathers and grandfathers and great-grandfathers down through the years. And the thing that makes the issue of abortion so emotional is that it's a lot more than terminating a pregnancy. It's killing the bride of Christ, because those people, if they're born, they could become part of the bride of Christ. And Jesus is upset about that too, because the work of God, the work of Jesus right now in this period is to call out a bride. And that's what he's doing. He's calling out people to be the bride of Christ. That's his work. And that's the will of God. He says, my meat is to do the will of God and finish his work. And so when the last person is called out to be a part of the bride of Christ, then his work will be finished. And we think that'll be the end of this particular phase of Christian history. And so it is still that. And it is still, the whole thing was about abortion. And if we can, I don't know why I can't remember. Transvestitism. Okay, I haven't thought about the word for 2 weeks, but I used to know how to spell it actually. But anyway, it's because we used to, I mentioned in my message 2 weeks ago, when they first started considering legalizing abortion, there was all these debates about when does a child become a person? When does a fetus become a person? Well, I was in seminary at that time, and in our theology classes we talked about it, and this seemed to be that most people were thinking that became a person at conception, and but others had certain months of the gestation period that they thought would be the time that the fetus would become a person, and there was not widespread agreement on that for the next 20, 30, 40 years. But now we've resurrected this old doctrine, which used to be talked about and used to be taught about the souls being created in the Garden of Eden all at one time. And I gave you all the reasons in the scriptures that go to make up that doctrine, that teaching, and that makes it much more alarming. And you see what was going on there was a contest between Satan and Jesus. Satan wanted to destroy the bride of Christ, and Jesus was trying to call his the bride of Christ. And so that's the reason there was so much things going on nobody understood. But the response of the senators was not good. And we have people coming forward claiming to be involved in the whole thing with their stories that they had to tell, and we don't know the outcome of that yet. The vote was positive to go ahead in spite of the claims of those people who said that they had been harmed, assaulted, and but it's not over yet. But it brings up the whole question of why were the senators having so much difficulty? Well, we've lost a sense of the authority of God. Authority of God is the main thing in the whole universe, and people have lost track of that. They don't even think about the authority of God anymore. And most people, if you mention the idea, they said, "What are you talking about?" You know, and we have a book that we study in the seminary program called Spiritual Authority by Watchman Nee, and it's a powerful book. And the authority of God, some churches require every member of the church to read it, and it's not a bad idea. And we're certainly going to read it in seminary. We have, but I'm not sure if we've done it every time, but we're going to. On our last time, we kind of ran out of time because we had so many times we were days off. We didn't get all the books in there, but we're going to do it now. We've added 2 months to the program, and but anyway, the authority of God is the main thing in the universe. It's greater than the power of God, because authority is what makes God get things done, really. And he delegates maybe as much as half of his authority to people on the earth, not necessarily Christian believers. And like the President of the United States, I don't know if he's a Christian or not, but he has authority of God delegated to him by God. And God could whisk him out of there as easy as anything if he wanted to. But he's got him there. He's going to, and he tells us to pray for him. And that's what we're doing, even if he's a believer or not. And that's true. All of those senators have authority delegated from God. And so we know, we say that a policeman has authority. He may not be as educated as you are, but he's out there and he's got that badge on his shirt, and it says that he has authority from God, and you better do what he says to do. If not, you're going to be disobeying God. So So the main thing we do about authority is we acknowledge it and we obey it. And King Saul was told to go and conquer these people and kill every one of them, and kill all their animals and everything. And you remember the story. And he didn't do it all. He did part of it. And when Samuel came up, he heard the bleating of the sheep, and he said, "What is that sound I hear?" And Saul said, "Well, I decided to save a few of them," and he saved the king as well. And Samuel said, "Obedience is better than sacrifice." Obedience is what we're looking for. That's what Jesus is looking for, is obedience. It's a big word. And when we recognize and acknowledge the authority of God, then we obey it. And we learn that. We learn obedience to the authority of God in our homes when we're growing up as children. That we know the father is the head of the house and is the head of his wife. And we see that, and that's we learn about authority right there in the home. That's where we learn it. The schools are not teaching it, and the colleges are not teaching it. It's being taught in the homes, or it should be taught in the homes. And children should see a clear lesson about the authority of the father in the home, and the submission of the wife to the father, and the obedience of the children to the parents. And that's where it's learned, right there. That's the course. It's not taught anyplace else unless it's taught in the churches and the homes. I should say it is taught in the churches as well, because we obey the elders of the church and pastors and the Sunday school teachers, and we do learn authority and the obedience to the authority in the church. But the primary place is the home, the family. And if the children don't learn about how important authority is, they're going to have a lot of trouble with God and in society. They have to learn it, and so we have to teach it. And we've got to remember that it's the home. And so what can we do about this mess that we had last week? Well, here's what we can do. I haven't read the verses yet. I'm going to do that in just a minute. I'm jumping ahead. Okay. So, but here's something we can do. We know that authority is what was missing. They were, if you acknowledge the authority of the other senator, you don't revile him in public. You don't put him down and call him names. I know they did that in the presidential debates in the last election, and it was embarrassing. And I'm sure the Lord was very displeased about the way they were talking to each other. It's hard to believe that it had degenerated into that. And so we really did get a bad start with that election. But here we are. It's getting worse. It's that like people are thinking that the whole country's falling apart. They feel no confidence. Really, people are really concerned. They're talking about moving to Canada or someplace. Where would you move? Where would you move? Canada's not that great either, but they got too much American television up there. But we can do something. We can do something about this catastrophe that we had last week. And the first thing we can do is make sure that in our homes that we teach about the authority of God and demonstrate it with the wife being submissive to her husband, and that the children being obedient to the parents. These are basic lessons taught by God, and impress upon them that authority is the main thing in the universe, not the atomic bomb, not space travel, not Facebook. No, it's the authority of God. That's the main thing in the universe, the authority of God. That's what makes the world go around right there. And I know I've said that it's the Abrahamic covenant makes the world go around, but in a sense that's true because Abraham is a friend of God, the closest to God among human beings other than Jesus, who is God. And the Abrahamic covenant does make the world go around, but it's based on authority. Abraham acknowledged the authority and was a friend of God, and God could count on him. That's why he chose him, and he's still Abraham and his descendants are still the chosen people because of the friendship that Abraham had with God. So you know that he acknowledged the authority of God. Okay, here's the verses I want you to listen to. Here's Romans chapter 13. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers. For there's no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. He's talking about husbands, fathers, parents, teachers, policemen, senators, presidents. The powers that be are ordained by God. It's not an accident that those people have authority. And it doesn't say that all those people who have authority are perfect human beings. They may not be perfect at all, but they do have the position of being ordained by God. And if God is ready for them to be gone, they'll be gone. Whoever therefore resisteth the power, resisteth the ordinance of God. We had a lot of resistance last week. And they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. Well, I don't know how that's going to work out, but that's the verse right there for you. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. For he is the minister of God to thee for good. That's the persons who have authority, who have power. They are ministers to us for good. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid, for he beareth not the sword in vain. For he is the minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. Wherefore ye must needs be subject, not only for wrath, but also for conscience sake. For this cause pay ye tribute also, for they are God's ministers, attending continually upon this very thing. Render therefore to all their dues, tribute to whom tribute is due, custom to whom custom, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor. Wow. The way they talked about that judge, Kavanaugh, that was just, that must have made God very, very disappointed. Because he's not only an exceptional person, but he had authority of God on him. And the things that they said about him, even if they're true, and nobody knows if they're true or not, we should treat them with respect. It's got to be respect. And there's those verses for you right there in Romans. The book of Romans is about the wrath of God. That's what it's about. And that's how you get it. If you don't obey the authority of God, you get the wrath of God. That's what it is. And that's what happens to nations. One of these days I'm going to bring my chart of all the what do you call it? The nations and their
kingdoms. Their kingdoms.
Yeah, their kingdoms, sure. And it shows how they grew and became big, and then they went small, and then they disappeared, and now others came along, and they grew and they got big, and then get smaller, and they disappeared. They come and go. Huge nations. The Roman nation as well. And our country has grown huge and influential. But we're not, that future doesn't look good if the churches can't come and rescue them out. And God's primary hope is the churches and the families in the churches. Where else do you think you're going to get it? Send angels down here? Well, we can tell angels where to go and what to do, but the church and the families in the church, that's the hope of our country, not the Senate, not the federal government, not the state governments. That's not the main hope of God. It's the Christians in the churches and in the families of the churches. That's the hope. So what can we do? Make sure that we acknowledge the authority of God and teach it to our children. Now I know, a lot of the children are going into their nursery schools and they're learning a lot of things in there, and they come out of there knowing more stuff than I knew when I was in the 6th grade. And it's amazing what they can learn. But they've got to learn about the authority of God, because that's the main thing in the universe. You want to talk about the main thing in the universe? Talk about the authority of God. And that's the big thing right there. And we've got to give prominence to the authority of God. He created this whole thing. Jesus created this whole thing for a purpose. He's going to set up his kingdom on the earth. And the people who are believers in him, they're going to be there with him throughout eternity. And this is God's will. He did this because he loves people. And we're going to be part of it. If you're a believer in Jesus, you're going to be a part of the bride of Christ and sit on thrones with him, reign over the nations of the world. And that's what's going on. That's what he's doing. So it's all because that's what God wants. And he has the authority. So he's going to see that it gets done. And he's relying on us to obey him. That's how it works. He wants us to obey. O-B-E-Y. Is that how you spell obey? Yes. Yeah. Obey, thank you. And that's the big word. If you can remember to obey God, you'll never go wrong. Right. And you may not understand why God requires certain things or suggests certain things or leads you to do or think about certain things. But if you obey him, you're not going to go wrong. And that's what God's looking for. Jesus is looking for people who will obey him. Jesus is going to be King of Kings, and you're going to live with him in the New Jerusalem. And you better learn how to behave around the authority of Jesus Christ. He's going to be your king. And you want rewards and fellowship? Learn now in this life, on this earth right now, about the authority of God. So in the homes, be sure to teach your children. And where you work, talk about the authority of God and obey. In our church, we should obey what we're told to do. We used to have a video we put up there. We tell people how to park and whatever things. And somebody criticized it and said, "Wow, I would never want to put anything like that and tell people what to do and what not to do." I said, "Well, they need to learn to do the right things, not do the wrong things." And that's it. You're going to learn. You got to learn about obedience to authority right here in the church too. And where else do you think they're going to learn it? In the universities? No, they're not teaching it. They're teaching. The universities and colleges in America are hotbeds of rebellion. Rebellion is the opposite of yielding to the authority of God. And the whole nation is full of rebellion. The children are full of rebellion. And we got to change some things. We got to get better control of our homes and be sure that the authority of God is taught and demonstrated in the homes, the same in the churches. So that's the hope of the Lord. And otherwise, the wrath of God is promised in the Bible. if we don't do that. And that's what the book of Romans is about, actually. Wow. I don't know about you, but that was a draining week. And it's not over yet. But we pray for Judge Kavanaugh and his family, what they've been put through. That's amazing. And the others. We pray for everybody that's involved in that what they call a circus. I don't know why they call it a circus. Circus is supposed to be fun. Yeah. That's the wrong word. There was a circus in it that looked like a three-ring group. Things were going on so fast all over the place that even in the elevator they were cornering the senators and it's amazing. Okay, well, I pray that we'll have a better week that's coming this week, and that we'll get this thing done. And remember that God's counting on us in our homes, our families, and in our church to honor the authority of God and obey. What do you do with the authority of God? You obey Him. O-B-E-Y. That's the big word. It's a short word, but it's the big word, obey. And that's what God's looking for. That's what Jesus is looking for, people who will obey Him. And I know it's not always easy to do that. Even King Saul found that out. And but Jesus sends the Holy Spirit to help us to learn how to obey. God bless you. Now we're going to have our prayer partners come up here in the front. And if you haven't yet believed in Jesus for everlasting life, please do it now. And we're going to be this on for a little while. So as far as I know, everybody here is already a believer. But just if you have a question, you have a prayer request, these are prayer partners. They'll pray with you or answer your questions or find the answers for you. Let's stand and we'll be dismissed. I think I got you out almost on time. Just want a minute over, I think. And they got the message, didn't they? Okay. All right. They're rushing to go and obey God as soon as they can. Okay. All right. Lord, bless these people. They're wonderful people. They love you. They want to obey you. And they agree that your authority is the main thing in the universe. And they're going to talk about it and demonstrate it and obey you and give them ability to do that and be blessed. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you all. Thank you for watching today. And we kind of ran out of time here, but we're going to be on the air tomorrow at high noon. On all of these platforms, and so I'll share a little bit about this message tomorrow with you, and we'll talk a little bit about the authority of God, and maybe during the week I'll be able to make a few comments as well. So bear with me. It was a tough week for everybody. People are lost confidence in our government and in our nation. And a lot of people are just plain upset. And it's probably a good thing, because maybe they'll be moved to do something about it. And I gave a congregation a word about what they can do in our homes and in the church about obeying the authority of God. So God bless you, and I'll see you tomorrow at high noon. Thank you.